Let's bring in the panel now. Former New South Wales Labor Treasurer Michael Costa and GXO Strategies Director Cameron Milner. Hi to both of you. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Michael, what do you make of this new possible round of tariffs?
Well, I think it's a negotiating tactic by Trump. I mean, you've got to remember, tariffs are a tax on consumers, and the consumers that will pay for this are the American consumers, and that'll feed into CPI. I think he's playing a game. He always makes the point that, you know, he slaps on the tariffs, and if people come back and negotiate, he'll come up with a better arrangement. I mean, you're right to criticise the government's approach, and I think what you've missed is one of the things that the government has been doing, which feeds right into Trump's agenda, and that is this future made in China, as I call it, you know, the future made in Australia fund. That's a protectionist fund. I mean, some of the rhetoric that was around that is exactly the rhetoric that Trump is using in relation to American industries. But, you know, ultimately, if he puts a 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals, it's American consumers that will lose out. And in addition, we're signed up to a whole bunch of intellectual property arrangements which preclude us from using generic drugs. You know, we've got a bit of leverage in this area. India and other countries produce generic drugs much cheaper than we buy off the US pharmaceutical companies. So I think it's a lot of leverage, but you can't exercise that leverage unless you're in front of him. And unfortunately, he's not able to get in front of him.
No, and this is the exact problem. In the end, Donald Trump, as I said, will do whatever Donald Trump wants to do. But the reality is, Cameron, is the UK and Canada have already secured tariff exemptions. The leaders of both of those countries have met face-to-face with Donald Trump. Anthony Albanese still has not, but he's been telling us for weeks he will get a meeting. Aren't these new tariff threats proof enough that a meeting is indeed urgent?
Oh, the meeting is absolutely urgent. I thought your comments at the top of the show, Danica, were exactly spot on. I mean, this is about a relationship problem that we've got as Australia. Not only about tariffs, but also about AUKUS, about our actual defence as a nation in terms of where we're going with the US and the US ally and our relationship. The UK has a free trade agreement. Vietnam has one, Canada, as you said, but we don't because we haven't even picked up the phone. You know, this is a Prime Minister who says it's really important, but won't actually move to actually secure a meeting, won't actually go to Mar-a-Lago before he's president, won't go to the inauguration, won't go to actually having a meeting at the White House. Benjamin Netanyahu has had 2 meetings in 3 days. It's not like Trump is inaccessible to world leaders he wants to meet with. But Albo is the one that's the problem here. I mean, Albo should stop the dim-sim diplomacy in Beijing and break bread with Donald Trump, President Trump in Washington, and get the relationship back on track with our strongest and largest ally.
Yeah, dim-sim diplomacy. I like that one, Cameron. And look, you're spot on. 4 meetings are about to occur now with China, none with the United States. And I think you raise a good point. This all started when Anthony Albanese didn't even go to the inauguration of our #1 ally. And this is where the issues started from the beginning. And we know that Trump likes this face-to-face diplomacy. So, you know, Albo can dream as much as he wants, but actions speak louder than words. Now, let's move on to the Reserve Bank's decision to hold rates yesterday. Economists from most of the nation's top financial institutions were expecting a cut, which never came. Michael, the reality is the RBA had the green lights. It had the green light from the market to go ahead and cut, but it didn't. It said it needed more data to prove that inflation was under control. What does this tell us?
Well, it tells me that economic forecasting is not a science, it's an art, and it always has been an art. And we see that anybody who's had to put a budget together knows that all of these things are guesswork in one sense. Look, I'm going to defend the RBA here. I think that waiting till the quarterly statements is actually a very prudent thing to do. The reason I say that is if you let inflation gets out of control, and there are some indicators, and the labour market's the key one here. I know people are talking about wage moderation, but we still have, very good employment in this country, and there's no prospect at the moment of entering a sort of labour market recession. So the RBA is waiting till July 30th to see the quarterly figures, and I think it'll move then. But it's definitely a downward cycle. I mean, she even made it clear in her comments yesterday. She's not talking about, individual decisions, but the trajectory, and the trajectory is obviously down.
And Cameron, Jim Chalmers keeps telling us over and over again that Labor has slayed the inflation drag, and the RBA begs to differ, plus we know that productivity is low. I think it says that the board is still worried about the cost of living crisis. What's your take on the decision?
Well, my take is that, back in February when Labor government needed a shot in the arm to get themselves back into the political game, the RBA gifted them a rate cut in the most hothouse political environment. Yet 6 or 7 weeks after a federal election, no, it's all okay. The numbers arguably are much better for a rate cut right now than they were back in February. So I've always been very concerned about this RBA. I think they're highly politicised. I think they play a political game, and I think they made a decision in February that favoured Labor before the last federal election, and last yesterday there was another kick in the guts to homeowners, and that's what the RBA is doing. They're playing politics on one side, and they're not looking after people who are genuinely suffering from a cost of living crisis and are being crippled by massive mortgages.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute blow to mortgage holders. I just think that, they had the green light to go for it, but the fact that they didn't, they're worried still about inflation, and it says a lot still about the way that Labor's handling this economy, especially when it comes to record spending, low productivity in particular.